as time flies by, you'll open up your eyes wide. You feel it's gonna go your way. Hey, hey, it's a brand new day. Hey, 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 it's a brand.
Welcome back to Marbella Now. My name is Nicole King, and I'm delighted to welcome to the studio via technology one of my favorite ladies here on the Costa del Sol. Her name is Liz Parry, and the first time I heard of her was because she was the editor of the Sur in English, no less. And she's had an amazing career. She's always a busy lady. She's got so much going on, and she's written a book. Unfortunately, due to the border restrictions that we're going through, Liz Parry can't be with us directly in the studio, but for the first time, we're doing, for me, a connection from the studio via Zoom to see and meet Liz. Liz, hello, how are you?
Hello, Nicole. I'm fine, thank you. And what a nice introduction that was. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, it really is. It's a pleasure to meet you. And sometimes I think we take for granted the people behind the scenes. And I'm all about that, behind the scenes. And I remember when the very first Sur in English came out, and I was living here, and I went to the Goya which was then by the post office, and I sat down and I had my Napolitana and I read the Sur, and I think it's an iconic paper. And you yourself have actually become an iconic person, whether it sits well with you perhaps because of your humility or not.
Well, I don't feel to have become an iconic person at all. I mean, there were a lot of people working on Sur in English with me, and I was very lucky to spend all the time there that I did. It was a fantastic job. I enjoyed every minute of it. But as you rightly say, mostly behind the scenes. I mean, the paper is out there, and we knew that people were going out every Friday to get a copy, and they were sitting down with their coffee or in the post office or wherever, and doing the crossword and catching up with the news. But meanwhile, we were in the office.
And also very much the philosophy of what you would imagine from seeing on the television, the behind the scenes at a newspaper, because your deadlines, the amount of organization is befitting of a major newspaper, even though it's a local paper. A lot of people rely on that information.
Yes, no, it is very important, and the deadlines. Actually, deadlines are one of the things that I miss since I retired, because if you have a deadline to meet, you stay at work until, well, to begin with, I used to stay till sort of 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to get the paper out. And there's always one busy night the day before printing when you just have to stay until the job's done. Nowadays, I don't have that pressure to get stuff done, but I do have people saying, will you do a Zoom call at 4:30? So that's like a deadline.
See, I'm doing you a favor.
Yeah, thank you.
But you are still very busy. I mean, apart from being very active in the Costa Press Club, I also see that you're very involved with the English Cemetery. Can I ask you, what is that all about?
I've been involved with the English Cemetery. I'll tell you how it started. It was years and years and years ago. I was working at Sur in English. And in those days, there weren't a lot of native English speakers living in Malaga. And at that time, it was run by the British consul, the cemetery in Malaga. He just phoned me out of the blue one day, I think because I was one of the few English-speaking people in Malaga who could write stuff. And he said, our secretary, the committee secretary, is leaving Spain. Would you do it instead? And at the time, I didn't know that you could say no to a consul. I thought, oh, this is like an order from Her Majesty. I've got to do it. So I said, oh, yes, of course. And I've been the secretary ever since.
How long is that?
I can't remember how many years, but maybe 25, something like that.
Oh, wow. I mean, we're talking serious time here.
Oh, we're talking decades, yes. But it stopped being the responsibility of the British consulate, and the British consul, the retiring British consul at the time, Bruce McIntyre, set up a Spanish foundation to run it. But because I was already there and on the committee, I stayed on the foundation as secretary of that. So that's what I do now.
But is that, as it sounds, a cemetery for British people? Is it like just that?
No, it was originally in the 1840s. There was nowhere for British people to be buried, non-Catholics basically. And the consul at the time, the British consul, set it up in the 1840s so that they could have somewhere decent to be buried. And then it immediately became obvious that it wasn't only Anglicans that didn't have anywhere else to be buried. There were people from other faiths, other nationalities. So it's actually an international cemetery. There are a lot of Germans buried there, but people from all over the world for one reason or other. And now also Spaniards and Catholics have been buried there because it's a very beautiful place. It's a lovely garden. It's in the centre of Malaga. It's very, very peaceful. And it has a church in the middle, an Anglican church in the middle of the cemetery, which is still functioning and has a congregation. They go there on Sunday for 11 o'clock service. And it's quite a meeting place still for foreigners in Malaga.
Well, I have to say, I'm very delighted to have that clarification because I know you do tours around the English cemetery and you can either think Halloween-y type thing, but it's nice to know that it's more of a...
But it's not all macabre and dead bodies. It's a lovely cultural place. It's actually been declared of cultural interest in Andalusia because there's so much history in it. Famous people buried there. Gerald Brennan is buried there. Spanish poet whose name's gone out of my head again, but loads of people, and the crew of a German ship which went down in 1900, they're all buried there. A lot of famous people, also a lot of anonymous people, and you're just walking around and thinking about their histories. I find it fascinating. I love the cemetery. I
think it's what you're saying is definitely making me wish that, okay, yeah, when we can travel again and leave our areas, it'd be...
Come, Nicole, I'll show you around.
I will be there and I'll come with the camera as well because it really does sound worth it. But it's funny how talking about something and that brings up the issue of Spain. A lot of us have come to live here, a lot of us have been here, like you have obviously for many, many years, and we don't take into consideration if we pass away there, what will happen to us because in a Catholic country, they won't bury us. It's amazing how many things actually do come up when you live abroad.
Yeah, well, of course they will now. You can go in any Spanish cemetery, municipal cemetery. And I think burials in the English cemetery in Malaga started falling off when the Benalmádena International Cemetery opened because now people on the Costa del Sol, they can be buried elsewhere. And in fact, the English cemetery now, we only have space for ashes. So we don't have... major burials of bodies. It's ashes now, which we put in urns. We have a lovely vertical garden, and you can have your ashes put in there so that people come and remember you.
That's in
the middle of a garden.
And who doesn't want to be in an idyllic setting, which probably is the reason, I don't know.
With a sea view, Nicole, with a sea view.
Well, hey, listen, if you've got to go, that's the way to go. In a nice
Absolutely, yes.
With a sea view. What brought you here? Because obviously you've been here, if you've just been involved with that for 25 years, how long have you been on the coast? How did that come about?
Oh, well, that goes back even further. I originally came to Spain as a student. I won't tell you what year because it's even longer ago. Spent a year in Granada. I'll just say that Franco was still alive. Spent a year in Granada as a student. And there I met the man who was to be my husband, and he was Spanish. So after I graduated, I came back to Spain, and I've been here almost ever since. We did go back and live in Oxford for a couple of years, but basically Spain was the place to be. And he was from Melilla, but he'd been to school in Malaga, so we ended up back in Malaga.
Is that what Is that what you studied, journalism? I mean, is that what you saw for yourself from the beginning, or did you fall into it?
No. I fell into it. I studied Spanish and French at university, but then when I was living in Malaga and the opportunity came up at SOR to join the team there, I did a journalism course then and learned to type, which was something I'd never done, because in those days, if you were a woman and you knew how to type, you were typecast as a secretary, and that was all you were ever going to do. And I never wanted to be a secretary, so I hadn't learned to type. But when the job at SOR came up, I soon learned to type better than most of the people there, in fact.
So you're obviously one of those people that when the challenge presents itself, you're not going to fall short, that's for sure.
No, go for it.
Well, I've got more that I want to chat with you with, but we're going to go right now to just a short break to hear some messages from our sponsors and also to remind you of our Zero Hero partners. But don't go away, because we're going to come back in just a moment with Liz Parry and talk about her latest book, Que va por ti, which is for you.
Judy likes to consider herself a clever young woman, which is why she thought very carefully before choosing her insurance company. Now that she needs it, she's jolly glad she chose Linear Director, as it looks as if she might have something better to do. Why don't you be clever, like Judy? Call Linear Director on 952 14 78 34 and see which policy is best for you.
When I'm the designated driver, I think it's only fair that I get to choose a Zero Hero venue that rewards me with free soft drinks. My friends all get to choose and booze, and they feel safe going home with me. Make sure that you get your reward for being the designated driver. Why pay if you don't have to?
Zero Hero, welcome to the playwright.
Hello guys, welcome to Harbor. All the designated drivers are welcome here to the Harbor. We are very proud to be a Zero Hero partner.
G-Wine is happy to be Zero Hero partner.
Okay.
are proud to present Zero to Hero. Never drink and drive.
McNulty's is proud to be a Zero Hero partner.
Hi guys, Ross here from Hogan Stand. Proud to be a member of the Zero Hero campaign. And we recommend everybody, nobody drives drinking. Everybody who drives a car doesn't have any alcohol in their system, and we're proud to sponsor the Zero Hero program.
A big thank you to all our Zero Hero partners. We're so grateful for your support, and I really hope our whole community will also choose you first when they're going out and about to spend money. Anyway, if you've just tuned in, we've been chatting with Liz Parry, emblematic editor of The Sur in English for so many years. She's also very involved with the English Cemetery in Malaga, and she's written a book which we're going to talk about in just a moment. But before we do, Liz Parry, you've got a very nice Kudeca yellow sunflower on yourself. A lot of us wear Kudeca. Yeah. I know I'm very supportive of Kudeca, but I believe you are particularly involved with Kudeca.
The reason I'm wearing my sunflower today is actually that there was a Zoom presentation this morning as Kudeca has launched a new campaign, because of course the pandemic has affected all the charities, but Kudeca relies very heavily on its second-hand shops, the charity shops, and on volunteers. And a lot of them have had to drop out because they're older people. The shops were closed for 2 months, so they're really desperate to get more funds in to keep, so they can keep going. So they launched a campaign this morning. It's called the Sunflower Effect, and I hope all your listeners, all your viewers will support that, because it's so important. We're so privileged to have something like Kudeca on the Costa del Sol. It's unique, and it's so worth supporting. When I retired, they invited me to become a trustee. Of course, I was hugely honoured, and I immediately said yes. So I'll do everything I can to support them. Yeah.
Well, you'll be very pleased to know that later on this week, Esther Rayez, who is the marketing department of Kudeca, is actually coming on the programme to give us more information on this new incentive to help raise funds. And I'm trying to get started with the schools to see if they can get all our charity shops online. If they could all have charity shops online, at least if there is lockdown again and in situations with less volunteers, they can keep selling online. So perhaps you can help me with that, Liz. I'll speak to you after the programme.
By all means, yes. Let's talk, yes.
Get that one on board.
Yeah.
So Codeca, obviously, we need to support, and all our charities, particularly our youth, if you can get involved now that the elderly people have to be more cautious, perhaps, due to COVID. Now, a good thing to do during lockdown is, well, meditate, take time for oneself, pamper oneself, but reading is definitely on the cards. And in fact, Liz, you have launched a new book, which is a revamp of another book which I loved. I've already placed my order for this new book because I've got 3 people specifically in mind already who I know it is perfect for. It's called Va por ti, This is for you. And it is, for me, I think anyone who learns a little bit of Spanish or wants to get involved will enjoy this book. And I would love you to explain to our viewers how this came about and then why you had to then re-edit again, because it's a beautiful story, to be honest with you.
Well, it started when I was writing for Soaring English, when I was the editor. I had a weekly column, and it was called Spanish Language and Customs, because one of the driving forces behind Soaring English was always to get new residents to try and integrate in Spain, to try and learn the language, not just so that they could communicate with their neighbours, but because it's so much enjoyable if you know what's going on. You know what the Spanish customs are, you can work things out. So people go to class and they learn grammar and they learn some vocabulary and they try it out. But it takes quite a lot to get to grips with everything that's behind it. The daily life, how daily life works in Spain, all those little things like filling in forms, going to the post office, asking who's last in the bread queue so that you don't lose your place in the bread queue, all these little things that make life so much easier and more pleasant, and also make you feel like part of the local community. So I was writing about Spanish customs and the things that happen annually and all the rest of it. And there was always a bit of vocabulary at the end to help people with colloquial expressions. And eventually, Santana Books, which was a publisher which just had books in English about Spain, they published a book which was based on this column, Spanish Language and Customs. And it was called Liz Paris Spanish Phrase Book. And it sold very well. It was in all the bookshops and it sold at the airport. And like you, I still have people who remember it and who use it, and also Spaniards who used it in their English classes and teachers who used it for teaching Spanish. Santana Books went out of business and the book was out of print. So when I retired, I decided, right, well, this is the time now to update it. But I was actually spurred on by the fact that when my parents died, the original book was dedicated to my parents, who were very keen to learn Spanish so that they could talk to my friends in Spain and come and visit. And they had a copy, which I dedicated to them. And when they passed away, I found their copy of the book. And inside was a sheet of suggestions for the next edition, which my father had written.
Oh, how beautiful.
Yes, it was sort of ideas for the next book. And so I incorporated them all and thought, right, well, that's what I'm going to do. And so I did it. There we go.
Absolutely fabulous. And I like that, for example, things, as you say, whereas before you were giving tips on how to start and address a letter, well, obviously that's obsolete, except I did actually post something the other day for the first time, like in 15 years. But there were certain things that actually needed updating because we have such a new world with internet and all the, the online world.
Yes. Yes, a lot of things remain the same, but obviously with technology, a lot has changed. I mean, that's the same the world over, but it's useful to know how to address an email in Spanish now more than a letter.
It's funny because when I first saw your book, I mean, it appealed to me. I'm the girl that used to go to bed reading Roget's Thesaurus to broaden my vocabulary because I like words. I enjoy the Spanish.
My own heart.
I enjoy the Spanish language. I agree with you. I feel that I have a lot better relationship and a richer experience living here because I understand why they have chocolate and churros and understanding the aperitivo. And for example, just an expression that I like is the sí, no, yes, no. ¿Quieres salir? Sí, no. Do you want to go out? Yes, no. I mean, and double negatives, making a positive, making a negative. No quieres
Yeah.
salir, no. You don't want to go out, do you? But there's positive, it's like crazy stuff, really.
Yes, yeah. But once you get the hang of it, it's lots of fun to do it yourself.
What is your favorite expression, colloquialism, saying?
Oh, Lord. Oh, you should have told me, should have warned me you were going to ask that one. I don't know about favourite ones, but I like the way it's very easy for all the expressions like, isn't it, don't you? All those, takes Spaniards a long time to learn how to do all those tag questions at the end of a sentence. If you just say, ¿verdad? At the end of a sentence, that covers them all.
It does.
I mean, truth, yes. Isn't it, aren't you? Didn't they? ¿Verdad?
And a great way when they answer the phone, dígame, tell me. It's like, what about good morning, Wilkinson? Such a different way about going about it. So you have now done this book yourself, is that right? You've edited it yourself, you've published it yourself, and it's available on Amazon?
Yes, that's right. I would like to say that I did it all myself and all the technology is mine, but actually my son, who's a computer whiz, helped me with the formatting. And he also designed the cover, which I think is a huge improvement on the first edition. But then, yes, I uploaded it to Amazon myself and published it because, well, basically any other way was going to be very complicated in times of COVID. Paper distribution is difficult at the moment. So apart from on Amazon, it's just available in the English Cemetery Bookshop.
Well, more reason to go to the English Cemetery Bookshop when we can. And in the meanwhile, do like I have, and that is get your copies from Amazon. As I say, there were 3 people that came to mind immediately that are going to get this for Christmas because it is just a fun way to enrich our knowledge of Spain, the language, the people, and a little insight into behind the scenes of Liz Parry, I think, at the same time.
Yes, well, it does have a lot of anecdotes from which I'm directly involved. Also, my parents, they figure in it.
Well, it really is obviously a family affair. Your son, your parents, yourself. It's really nice to know that everybody is in it, and I'm sure that that love really does come through. Liz,
and that's Spain for you, isn't it? It's all about family in Spain. You have to involve them all.
Well, that's actually, I think, one of the main reasons I wanted to have family here was because I wanted my children to still be able to like hug and have that appreciation of family and not be waiting to leave home at 18. I think it's one of the things I like most about Spain is the appreciation for children, babies and the elderly.
Absolutely, I agree with you, yes.
So, viva España. Liz, thank you so much for taking time out to speak with us. I'm glad I could give you something to do, to have a deadline to meet.
Yes.
And another one.
No, thank you very much for asking me, Nicole. It's always a great pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise. And another deadline for you is to watch Marbella Now every weekday at 9 p.m. on RTV Marbella. Also repeats at 2 p.m. every day. And then you can other times like at 1 in the morning, nice times, but when you're coming back from used to be coming back from work, now that's not the case. But we are on quite a few times a day, and also you can check out recordings from the rtvmarbella.tv website or links to this show from my website, nicoleking.es. And remember, buy Liz Parry's book, Va por ti, this is for you, from Amazon. Great Christmas present. Liz, God bless, thank you.
Thank you, Nicole, thank you very much.
Hasta mañana.
We can change.